Good evening, everybody. Right, let's see how quickly we can fucking descend into a spiraling cataclysm of fucking technical errors. Welcome to the Thursday night live stream, everyone.
It's us at yellowbellytabletop. It shouldn't take us too long.
Jeez, thanks for the confidence there, David. Fucking hell. We had some audio issues last week, and I've added some filters to David's audio. So
hopefully it sounds better.
Hopefully it doesn't sound quite so echoey stroke boomy stroke crap. Feel free to give me feedback. I know his chair is still super annoying, but
look, we're not far off possibly buying the desk, because I need to buy a wardrobe for my bedroom as well, because I'm a bit fed up of a floordrobe.
Thanks, Orinoco. Orinoco says it is better. Okay, sorry, carry on, mate.
Once because I'm going to order it all from IKEA, once the desk is in,
then you can choose.
It will be chair o'clock, so there's no more of this.
Yeah. Oh dear, professionals. So yeah, the only drawback on these sort of like pass filters that do noise suppression and that is that they are a bit. They obviously do increase my CPU load in terms of the processing through OBS. So again, if that means that we're getting like glitchy drop frames, you know, crackly audio or crackly video, please just give me some feedback in the chat, guys. I won't necessarily be able to do anything about it right now, but it's good to know that the status of the status. Yeah. So we hope everybody had a good week of gaming stroke hobby stroke playing with toys since we last saw you all. We've had a pretty good one this last 7 days, haven't we, mate?
We got some gaming on Saturday.
We've become historical. We've just gone full historical grognard over the last 7 days, haven't we?
Well, you have. I was aiding and abetting on Monday. But we'll come to that later.
Yeah, you were sort of like my second in command. Let's give a shout out to everybody in the.
It was more authoritarian and dictatorship because you weren't allowed your order dice, but we'll come to that later.
Yeah, because you can't remember how to play this fucking game. So just give a shout out to everybody in the chat. Let me get my YouTube up so I can scroll back. Hello to Tim. Well, Tim looks like he dropped in and then dropped out because I haven't seen any other posts. So I'm guessing Tim's playing.
He's probably playing some Battletech.
Fingers crossed for you, Tim. Let's hope you win. Paul Howells, hello sir. Hello Ewok. Hello Darren. Hello Orinoco. Hello because of Ben. Stroke Crispin. Hello Spam and Egg. So yeah, hello to everybody.
I think that's everyone.
What's this? Yeah. Paul was going to ask about the chair. No,
no need to ask, Paul. It's as creaky as ever.
Don't ask about the chair. So, right, let's get into it. So, if you're new to the stream, we will be following our usual format. So, what we'll do first is we'll talk about what we're going to be hobbying on tonight. Then David and I will have a quick chat about what we got up to in terms of gaming over the last week, which will include a session at David's new house on Saturday where we played some Flames of War again. Then there's a couple of small news items we've got to discuss, isn't there, mate? But nothing.
Yeah, there's some.
Nothing major.
Insane.
And then we will waffle and waste some time and fill the gap as we do until about 9 o'clock, when we'll get into our main topic, which is I certainly have had a bit of a, what's the word, Damascene
realization.
Well, it's I was going to be biblical and say a Damascene conversion over the issue of table size in games. It's something that I've always been a bit fast and loose with. But we'll discuss it more when we get to the main topic, because we don't
I
want
had a
to eat
thought
up.
on my drive to work of this, and we'll talk about it more later, because we're guilty of doing it both ways, but we'll come to it.
Yeah, I mean, again, it'll be interesting to see, you know, where you were like philosophically, and what's changed for you. But I've definitely moved my position quite sharply over the last couple of weeks because of gaming experiences we've had. So, do you want to go first with what are we painting tonight, or what are we doing tonight?
I don't know what I'm doing tonight. I don't know whether to paint some more Dungeon Saga, which is up there behind me, which requires me to take my headphones off and not be a presenter. Or whether I'm not going to expose you all to the compressor and the airbrush because I'm not a twat. Which rules out two of the projects I've got on the go. Okay. I've got Wild West Exodus also up here to get on with. And then the only other thing is possibly some MDF scenery. So while you do your shit, let the people in chat decide.
Okay, so there you go. Do you want to just bullet point the options again, mate, so that people have got know what exactly...
Wild West Exodus, Dungeon Saga Origins, or some MDF terrain from... I don't know where it's from. It's the same place that I was doing the rail system on stream like about 8 weeks ago, something like that.
Oh, the guys from UKGE. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. Okay, mate. Well, okay. So there you go. Those are David's options. Get your votes in the comments. What am I going to be doing? Let's go to my desk cam.
People are asking what the scenery is. It's Candor Wreckage from Gridlock Studios. There we go.
Okay.
Orinoco, fuck off.
Well, it's Orinoco said. So, yes, oddly enough, Orinoco, Assassin's Creed wasn't on the list. We Cry Foul. I've got too much crap heaped around my desk. I can't even reach what I'm supposed to be painting tonight. Okay, right, let's go. So... the painting competition, it's in full swing. We've only got a couple of weeks left. New toys is the topic, and I need to get started, otherwise I'm never going to finish. So, tonight I am going to be starting and making some progress on my painting competition entry. So we're doing the Sneaky Pete expansion for the God tier board game. Which is Sneaky Pete here, and there are, I think, 3 of these little sort of sneaky
minions.
Stabber minion guys, and a banner. So this is what
technically called followers, Paul.
Followers. See, this man knows all the rules because he's smart, and I'm just an idiot. So that's what I'm going to be doing. So as soon as we decide what David's doing, the first job on the agenda really is going to be what skin tone are we painting these goblins. Now, I quite want to try something that David's done before. David did an orc project where he did a fantastic, almost khaki green skin tone. It was not your classical orc green at all. And I want to give that.
You talk about that. I'm just going to go dive and get A, said orcs.
Okay.
Find them. B, some glue, and C, a knife.
Okay. It looks like MDF got a lot of shouts. Everybody seems to be more interested in the scenery than anything, mate. So yeah, as I say, David did this skin tone on these orcs that I really, really liked. It was like an olive green. No, not blue, Paul. Oh dear, Darren, I'm about halfway through my entry. Ewok, that's what she said. Well done, nice one, Ewok. Like it, mate. So yes, now I tend to be really predictable with my orc skin tone. I do a classic GW vivid, rich, full green. What do we have any suggestions for a Vallejo model colour that we could use as a base note? Now, bearing in mind these are board game pieces, everybody, because that's what God Tier is. It's just a board game. So this is going to be... Russian uniform is not perfect for orcs. Well, I suppose it could be, but that's not really what I'm going for. And I can't tell whether you're... I was just about to say in one mouthful, and I can't tell you if you're trolling me, and then we have Iraqi sand just to prove.
Genuinely, Paul. If you come down to my desk,
yeah.
Russian uniform is a good shout.
Don't encourage him.
You don't have the Citadel paints.
No, so this is what David's. So you use Citadel colours for these, didn't you?
Yes. So this is Deathworld Forest, Athonian Camo Shade, more Deathworld Forest. There's one between Deathworld Forest and Creed Khaki, and then Creed Khaki for the edge highlights with a bit of a Athonian Camo Shade glaze over it.
Russian uniform.
Quite a drab skin, but yeah, Russian uniform is a good substitute for Deathworld Forest.
Really?
Which is the base. Yes, it is. I'll go to my colour picker in a minute and show you all, but
okay.
I'll do that in a second. So that's
it just goes to show you
quite nicely with that blue armour and
yeah,
the orange
it does
wrapping.
go very well. Obviously, mine are going to be mostly earth tones for the kit. Blue and brown are great. Blue's a great colour for trolls. Hello, Cheese Me. Good to see you,
these. But the other thing I've been doing this week, just for the boys and girls at home, Bam has provided me with a Song of Ice and Fire minis to start priming.
That's Daenerys, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it is Daenerys.
Yeah.
And then we have a shit ton of men on horses.
Dothraki screamers to you.
Men on horses.
Orinoco.
Men on horses.
That is a great suggestion. You've got some cable intrusion on your shot, mate. I didn't know if you noticed.
I can't really help
That's fine.
it.
I'm just telling you, just in case you didn't realise. That is a great suggestion, Orinoco. The problem is that's sort of a bit advanced for what I want. These are just board game pieces. I really want to be flat colours, wash, bang, done. And I know purple gives some beautiful colour tones for shadows on particularly light greens. But I think it's more than I was looking for in terms of effort. Okay, so you and Ewok both reckon Russian uniform.
Hang on. Let me go new tab.
If the Russian, so I only have one question. If the Russian uniform is my last colour and I'm not going mad with the highlights, will it be too dark once I've agraxed it?
Hang on. There's a fucking full... Hang on, where is it?
That is my question. Because I feel it may be too dark to just use as a one and done colour.
Deathworld Forest is...
You got a little paint conversion chart?
Yeah. This is from redgrimgithub.io.
Yeah.
So it does a delta for the mathematical distance between the colours. Delta of less than 3 represents a very close match. It's nearly indistinguishable. A delta of less than 7 is usually pretty close and can safely be used as a substitute. The middle square is the colour of the control paint, the first column, and then the surrounding border is the colour matching the paint. So Deathworld Forest is very similar in Vallejo model color to Luftwaffe Cam Green. It's got a delta of 6.18. It's not necessarily the best.
But it's one
close.
of the closest in the model range. Is that, and that's the best?
Yeah, without going to camouflage green from game color or an army painter color.
Luftwaffe Cam Green, you say?
Yeah.
I don't suppose it tells you what the 70 number is, or the even better the Luftwaffe.
No, it doesn't.
Luftwaffe Cam. Oh, okay.
Then,
I have that.
Camo is my mid-tone. Ogryn Camo has no matches that are less than 7. And then Krieg Khaki, where the fuck are you? Krieg Khaki is a 6.43 to Vallejo Pale Sand.
Oh, Christ. So basically a beige. So Luftwaffe Cam Green, you say?
I'd go Luftwaffe Cam Green. What's it called?
But aren't I better off going for your mid-tone? What was it? Ogryn something?
Ogryn Camo has no matches.
Okay, but what does it look? Is it the dominant colour on those models that you saw there?
Hang on. Let me move shit.
Do you know what? You may just get your wish. We may be doing Russian uniform. Ewok. Yeah, so Darren's apparently doing some Rust work. Everybody put in the chat if you're up to hobby, if you're up to something, let us know what we're doing. And then we'll get on to club and games.
Of course, I can't fucking see shit, can I? Because I'm on the floor. Suck it up, buttercups. Fuck knows where Death World Forest's gone, because it's not in there. You've got a Thonian anyway, haven't you, dickhead?
It's Thonian I've got, yeah. I think.
Because that's like a dirty green-brown.
Yeah.
Let
you know
me just
what?
lean out shot a second.
Let's just go. Let's do the Russian uniform thing. What is the worst that can happen? Do you know what? It can't be wrong, and I'm sure it'll look just fine.
Oh, God.
And it might not be as insane as what I was initially going to pick.
Oh, yay. 2 more are completely and utterly broken.
2 more what?
Right, my SCARDIS situation is not good because they're broken.
Is this your chair?
We won't be using those.
What's that?
Right.
What's broken, mate?
My SCARDIS hangery things on my...
Oh, fuck. On your paint racks. Bummer.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Right. Don't have Death World Forest as base coat colour. But
okay, put your camera... show. You don't have...
I don't have the base colour.
So Ogryn Camo, you see that's what I was meant. That's a really yellowy it's almost like a yellowy beige, isn't it?
Yeah.
And did you do that as a colour mix?
No, I don't believe so. I just glazed over it with a Thonian at the end to just tone it back into the greens. Because it's Death World in all the recesses.
Yeah.
Then washed, then rebase coated with Death World, then Ogryn, then a little edge highlight of Krieg Khaki in a few places, and then a Thonian wash again. Yeah,
I think to be fair, you've achieved that skin tone by basically going for beiges and then putting the greens back in with the wash step, haven't you? You've sort of gone for very desaturated colours and then injected it back in.
If I was you...
Yeah. Do you know what? Russian uniform's very desaturated, isn't it? It's almost like a greeny, browny, grey. It's a very nondescript colour.
Yeah, I don't necessarily... What number is it?
It's 94. Do you know what?
Of course, it's not. It's not in my shelf.
I'm just gonna I'm just gonna go for it.
Do you have this one? 1-1-2 green yellow.
1-1-2 green yellow.
Yeah.
Yes, I do. No.
Pastel green 109. Pastel green is virtually creek khaki.
No.
How close is old green camo to Iraqi sand? What number is Iraqi sand?
Iraqi sand is 1-2-4. Do you know what? It's absolutely typical. All of the colours that you're pulling up, I don't actually have by the looks of it. Which is really annoying. But then it's really annoying in one respect, but because I haven't got them. But then again, it's good that they're ones that I definitely need to prioritise getting because they've got great uses.
I would say Russian uniform is a good base coat match by the time you put
that's your Russian uniform, is it? Right. Okay, mate. You've got the model in front of you, so you know. And I must confess, under the blue, the next to each other under the lights, they do look spot on. So well done, Ewok. You win tonight's Guess the Paint Colour lottery with the one and only Russian uniform. Right.
I find Middleton's a bit yellow though, Orinoco.
Yeah, but it's like what we said before. You're correcting back to green with your Ethonian.
Yeah, my Ethonian glaze at the end does correct it back.
Necessarily a bad shout.
So what's going on with chat right now?
See, there's Middlestone. It is very yellow.
Assassin's Creed, somebody shouting blue. Russian uniform is perfect for orcs. Iraqi sand is perfect for everything. Don't feed trolls.
Right.
Letting David do the hard work.
We're gonna give it. Do you know what though? I'm gonna keep Middlestone out as perhaps my. You know, I might do something layery. I might even do a mix. Let's go with it. Let's start painting. Swig of coffee. Let's start some painting, people.
Ewok, your snow bases, what are you doing with them, mate? Just a question that I'm always intrigued by, because for some of the lads at club, they've done snow bases and they've not been happy with the results after. And I have sort of a go-to recipe that everyone's super happy with that I do. So I'm just always intrigued to see what other people are doing. Orphans, Tears and Cocaine.
Sounds like a Scottish version.
So,
that's
23
very good.
minutes past the hour. Shall we let the boys and girls know what we got up to on Saturday and Monday?
Yeah, let's do that. Did you see? Just look at ADC Ewok's comment. Orinoco said Middlestone 70882, and Orinoco says that sounds like a Scottish version of Beverly Hills 90210.
See, I thought the Scottish version of Beverly Hills was referring to the Orphans, Tears and Cocaine.
Yeah, possibly. I need to bring down my paint water. So, what did we get up to this week? So, let's start with Club Night, because it's the most recent Monday night Club Night. Ricky and I played a full 1,000 point game of Bolt Action. Early War Japanese versus Late War Germans. Bit of a Frankenstein game. Not exactly historically reflective, but a good game of Bolt Action nonetheless. We played one of the attacker-defender scenarios where I was the defender in a central circle with a radius of about 24 inches, and then we had a lot of units coming on around the perimeter of the table, essentially anywhere we wanted. Did you see Darren's comment about his basing? So he's got Army Painter Snowflock mixed with PVA glue to make a paste, then spread on in clumps, leaving some earth and grass showing in patches.
If it's Snowflock, like static grass style flock, Darren, I would also recommend not mixing it. Apply your PVA to your base, let it go a bit tacky, then sprinkle it on and tap it off after, because what happens is it makes it look like melted snow with the PVA and how it spreads out.
Because it goes sort of semi-clear, semi-transparent.
Yeah, it goes semi-translucent.
Ewok will be putting a tutorial for the bases on his square base games on round bases project.
Not trying to trigger Jerry at all.
Well,
genius.
That's very good.
Fucking Dungeon Saga, wasn't he?
So okay, so so what you're saying, Darren, absolutely nope to David's suggestion, because you don't want it to dry fluffy. You want it to dry almost like dead flat or semi-smooth.
That's why you seal it after. It doesn't dry fluffy.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I do like... There's nothing quite... Because obviously with fresh snow has a very open structure at the top. And I don't think you can beat Snowflock for giving that... fluffy is the best description of fresh snow. Okay. Oh, I see. So what you do makes it look fluffy. I mean, to be fair, again, I'm sure you're doing a cracking job, but that's mostly the flock. The flock product is the best product for doing this freshly fallen, fluffy snow. Because a lot of the other like I'm old school, I'll do the old sodium bicarbonate paint and PVA soup that you spoon on and then let it solidify. It gives you very opaque snow, very sort of like smooth, semi-melted, compressed snow. It's good for that, but it doesn't give you that fresh fallen snow. But this is a bit of a can of worms, because as I'm sure everybody's getting the gist, that when you go for snow effects, there's there's as many different ways to approach it as there are versions of snow. What is it? There's that urban myth. The Eskimos have like 80 words for snow or some crap. To be honest with you, there is an element of truth in it, certainly from our point of view as hobbyists and modelers. So back to our bolt action game. It was a draw. We got to turn 4 of 6. Basically, the problem that Ricky and I are going to try and play bolt action every month for a year so that we can get the rules down. Because much as I absolutely love bolt action, the rulebook is fucking horrible for quick reffing and trying to find things that you know you've read somewhere. And there's just, every time we play, it's been like 2-3 months, and then we end up page flipping. Hang on a minute, how do reserves work? Do your first wave count as reserves for special rules like snipers and forward observers? How does that interact with that? It's just like, so we're going to try and play it every month so that we can get some of this down, so that we can less page flipping and rule obsessing and a bit more strategy and tactics. Because at the moment we're just focusing trying to play a clean game without playing a smart game, if that makes any sense. Still, very much enjoyed it. Panzer IVs are absolutely fucking horrible. I had absolutely no way to deal with it.
No, they're absolutely horrible if you're playing early war Japanese.
That is a thing. I can see why the Japanese
tank fight.
They probably saw some photos of a Panzer IV, and that was what sort of like provoked them to join the war on the side of the Axis powers, or again, because they thought, no, there's no point. We can't do anything there. But yeah, great game. And we'll have more to say later because it will feed into our main topic. Supplemental to our club night on Monday night, David and I managed to get in yet another historical event. On Saturday at his place, we played our second game of Flames of War. Now, our first game, we weren't that impressed, were we, mate? Let's be fair.
No, it was marred with controversy and the fact that they suggest you play Annihilation and nobody has a clue what the fuck's going on or how to play a game. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, bearing in mind, sort of like, Flames of War has this victory condition where you can basically destroy your opponent's formations to win. It is great, and I do love it. I do think putting the first sort of scenario out as a kill scenario is a bit of a bad move, because like you've got to get your head around how's my opponent built his list, what is important and what's not, what's in the formation and what's support. Too complicated. We played the same. We essentially played the same armies in that first game, didn't we, mate?
Yes, we did.
I think. So we've got sort of D-Day Germans against yours is Americans, isn't it?
Bulge Americans.
Bulge Americans. But this game was way better. After we'd played this game...
So we played the breakthrough scenario. So on the 6x4 table, the table is divided into 4. With the picture on screen now, basically the centre of the table is under that crossroads in the middle of the board. Paul picked 2 deployments, the one in the bottom right hand of the screen with the farm and the one in the top left of the screen with the church. I deployed in the bottom left of the screen, which has the fields and the hills in, and my objective was to push through, breaking through the defenders' lines to get to the top right-hand corner and capture 2 objectives.
Which were placed
is the long and short of it. And if
I
end a turn holding an objective and Paul hasn't repelled my attack, after turn 6, I win the game. If Paul repels my attacks after turn 6 and I have nothing within 8 inches of an objective, the game is over and Paul has won.
So the objective-based scenario worked way better. The terrain that we'd used, again, it was exactly the same terrain with a few supplemental hills and a bit of green fieldiness just to pad things out. But the terrain worked way better in this game. If you look in the top centre of this picture here, there's a large ruined cathedral church thing. And again, we had to basically make a ruling on how do we interpret the church. Are we going to use the building rules where basically you can see through it but it gives concealment, or do we treat it more like a forest, so it's tall terrain and blocks line of sight through it? We made this decision to treat it as tall terrain. Another good thing, I think, actually, I have to sing the praises. Having said so much negative stuff about Flames of War, I do have to sing its praises here. The terrain rules are really good. They are so simple.
The fact that there's the QRF table as well.
You know, they have a table that's got... If you can think of a common piece of terrain, stream, ditch, wall, forest, ruin, building, crater, whatever... They tell you how they think it should work. Essentially, there are only 2 factors that you need to worry about. You need to worry about, is it tall? Is it short? and how do you want it to affect movement. It is such an elegant little system of terrain. It's essentially just those two parameters, and as long as you know how you want each piece of terrain to interact or behave with those two parameters, it's just brilliant. It's just so nice. But yeah, this game went way better than our first game. We're really happy with the way that the terrain looks now, even though it's not fully painted or fully finished. We've still got a lot of work to do, but it does look great. And some of the features that we've got, like the fields that you can see here in this picture in the top, the roads, which were an absolute brilliant buy. And David's 3D printed terrain, the walls and the buildings, etc., and some MDF stuff. In fact, there's a real hodgepodge of stuff on this table. We've got everything from pre-bought, pre-finished to 3D printed to handcrafted.
Assembled myself out of laser cut bases, MDF, and what's it called? Woodland Scenics armatures.
Yeah. Oh, the tree. Yeah, you've still got a load of trees to finish. The only thing that lets it down really is the mat, which is my crappy old PVC shiny green fantasy mat, which is one of the first battle mats I ever bought after the GW flocked one, which I owned for many, many years. It was one of the first ones I bought, God knows how many years ago. And I intend to replace it quite soon, because it just doesn't look the part. It's too much shine. The texture's really crappy. I mean, it works. It does.
It's livable,
but it's not brilliant at all. And it doesn't set the terrain off particularly well as a backdrop. So yeah, fantastic game of Flames of War. We didn't quite finish, did we, mate? We got to about turn 4 again.
No. We got to turn 5.
Turn 5, and
we called it at that point because you wanted to be home by a certain time.
Yeah,
and the second thing was turn 6. With how we were playing, we were like, well, the game's basically going to be a draw.
Yeah.
Or it's going to be a protracted, drawn-out win for Paul in the long run, because I barely had anything to contest objectives at that particular point of the game, did I?
I'd got lucky and got rid of a couple of your tank pairs, hadn't I? Got an early lead on kills, which was helpful. Actually, bizarrely enough, like David says, real world got in the way. I had to finish by a particular time, so I had to knock it on the head, even though an extra hour probably would have seen us finish the game. And it was only our second game, so there was still a lot of rulebook flipping. We did one assault during the game, but I don't think we did it right. We sort of like didn't check that. Oh, the assault rules in this game, I fucking hate them. When you on paper, it's exactly the same as the way an assault is handled in bolt action in theory, which is once stuff smashes into each other, they just keep fighting until something's dead or broken or finished. And you just think, yeah, that's great, because it gives you that tension of assaults really deadly, etc. But there's all sorts of weird pernickety rules in the Flames of War one. So like you move things into combat, then you fight, and then you check to see if there's anything that's not within 4 inches or whether you can't. Oh my god, and it's just like, just do what bolt action does, smush it all together and just keep rolling dice till one side wins. That would be much better for me. But still, we'll keep the one thing based on this game. We will definitely keep at it. I think...
Again, we've gone from being really on the fence about Flames to we're actually looking forward to playing it again at some point.
Yeah, definitely. And on reflection, because again, because David did some really smart moves in the turn 4 or 5 that we actually finished, I think it would have been his game because he managed to pin my infantry platoon, which meant that they were going to struggle to contest the objective that he was holding. And because David was essentially already squatting on it at the end of turn, when he went into his next turn, it would be like, if you don't contest this, I'm going to win. And as I say, pinning my infantry platoon was pretty much, it happened at the perfect time for him. It was really good game.
Your Tigers, though, fucked though. They were mental.
Yeah, Tiger tanks, whoa, they are expensive, but Jesus Christ, they're worth their points.
I will tell you the little underrated tank of my formation. Fucking M24 Chaffee light tanks.
Yeah.
Absolutely screaming up the road and blowing the shit out of your HQ unit in the forest.
Yeah, the stabilization rules on them so that they get 2 shots even when they've moved is huge, because they've got the mobility and they can put out the firepower, and their guns no slouch, is it? What is it? It's like a 75mm cannon.
75mm.
Yeah, they are good tanks. I mean, they are complete glass hammers. They won't take any punishment at all. But I mean, you shot up that road, took out one of my Panzer IVs on your way past. Basically, you were legging it from the Tigers that were behind you, weren't you? But
yeah, legging it from the Tigers that were behind me and making a preamble for some cover, ready for turn 5 and 6 for contesting that objective.
Yeah, but yeah, I agree with you. They were sort of like MVP.
And again, I think and it leads into tonight's topic. With a bigger table, we got some more movement shenanigans out of Flames of War, which we were kind of lacking in the first game, I feel.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't want to go on about that too much, because that very much, as you probably guessed, our gaming reflects our topic this week, and it was a massive influence on.
Yeah, but we can come to it and talk to it more
now,
in a bit.
Shall we just quickly
mention.
do the news?
The news? The news?
Yeah. Let me I'm just opening a browser tab, because there was one thing that David wanted to shout out this week, so I'm just bringing it up, and then we'll get into it.
Oh, fuck off. Sorry.
Right. Hurrah! Finally, it's loaded. Take your time, YouTube. Okay, so I'll do mine first, mate. So I only have one bit of news. Now, I'm subscribed to Guerrilla Miniature Games on Facebook. Ash Barker's Facebook group for his channel. And he popped out this little news story tidbit. I think it was early this week. And I was like, oh. So Osprey have currently got a game up for pre-release, which very much interests me. So this game is just one. I think it's £15 for the paperback edition. When Nightmares Come, an investigative war game of supernatural horror. Basically, Call of Cthulhu, the tabletop miniatures game. So this is a cooperative and solo skirmish war game for investigating and battling supernatural mysteries of the modern world. It incorporates elements of role-playing that allows for non-combat challenges and dramatic encounters. It's by the same guy who did Zona Alpha. So I don't know at this stage if it shares much DNA with the core mechanics of Zona Alpha. It's a game I've not played anyway. But I am super pumped for this.
Zone Alpha's been on my list because of it being
thanks, Ewok. What
something
a
that I think
fantastic
Ricky would
offer.
quite enjoy.
Now, the only depressing thing about this is obviously, as we all, well, I'm sure most of us, right, most of us who are in this hobby will at some point design a game or think about designing a rule set or and this was what I was working on. Essentially the exact same premise. So I'm a little bit gutted because he's obviously got there before me and created a rule set that seems to be wanting to do everything I wanted to do in a game. But I am super interested in this and I will almost certainly be getting it. Just for, even if it's only just to go through and go, oh, that's how he did that. Oh, that's how he did that. But I can't imagine it will stop at that. I will probably have to play this game, and it will give me an excuse to buy all of the fantastic Dunsmouth terrain from bloody what's it called? The Wayland people. War Cradle. Thank you. War Cradle Scenics. And I'll be able to use my Mansions of Madness little Cthulhu characters and monster miniatures to create a game, and I'm sure it's going to be fucking amazing. So yeah, that's my news. Ewok says it will probably be closer to his Nightwatch game. I'm not familiar with it, mate, but I will look it out. When I clicked on his name, because on the Osprey website, you can click on the author's name and it goes through to like their bibliography. The only one that it showed on their website currently is Zona Alpha. So either Nightwatch, I'm assuming, wasn't published by Osprey or it isn't current. Yeah, I mean, that's going to be huge, isn't it, Darren? How does he handle madness in the game? Is it a sort of defeat condition, or does it give you, extra rules for handling your characters? I mean, the potential, as somebody who is a massive Arkham Horror stroke Cthulhu nut, this was something, as I say, I was going to the trouble of designing my own gaming system in my head and on paper because I was like,
because whilst Mythos is nice, it's just not quite the same, okay. Is it?
I will look it out, Ewok. I will look it out because, as I say, I'm really interested to see what he does with that. And then, so David said we want to shout this out. Now, obviously, Mantic for a long time have been giving out free rules, haven't they? But
giving out free shit in general.
Yeah, basically, I think if you paid the postage, they would send a third edition, Kings of War third edition rulebook or mini rulebook, to anybody. Just you give them an address, pay the postage, they'll just send it out. So I think the idea that they had was you can just gift a friend a game. And it was a way of spreading the word. Fantastic idea. Now, apparently, there's an offer where if you buy any of their big army boxes.
If you buy an army or a mega army,
okay,
you get 2024's. What's it called?
Clash of Kings supplement. So
Clash of Kings included.
This is the scenario and rules update that they do annually to balance Kings
and not digital. Print.
That's a really good offer. That is a really good offer.
And I didn't realise this because I'm a member of the Vault and the Gold subscription. I get £10 off their web store to use between now and March 2024.
Okay, so you thinking you might buy a Kings of War army?
I may well be buying a Kings of War army.
Any idea what yet?
Northern Alliance.
Oh yeah, that's fair. You have mentioned Northern Alliance, mate. Go Northern Alliance, because dwarves you have 1,000 options, and and you could go for a more high fantasy army. Plus the fact I think Mantic's dwarves are looking a bit tired now. Aren't they ripe for a redo because they were like one of the first ones they ever did?
Probably. The only other ones that have really been interesting me are the ogres. I quite like the ogres.
Yeah, they are an extremely popular army by from Mantic. And they're some of their most recent hard plastic sculpts, I believe, the ogre ones. So I've seen some very positive things about those models.
But yeah, it was announced on the Instagrams by Andy from Blackjack, or ex Blackjack.
Yes, now Andy from Mantic.
Yeah, Andy from Mantic. So yeah. And I keep looking at an excuse to play a rank and flank game.
We need to try the new fantasy, you and I, or you and V. I think you will like it.
I liked Kings, I just didn't like the mechanic, but there's nothing stopping me using Kings of War minis for other games.
No, I mean, at the end of the day, you can use whatever miniatures you want for the fantasy game.
Hobgoblin, anyone?
Well, I mean, even if we play I think it would be nice, it might be refreshing for you to have a Games Workshop war game that you're like, oh, do you know what? This is actually quite good.
I have one.
War game.
Called Underworlds.
No, I didn't say board game. I said a war game.
I quite like the miniatures from Necromunda. The rules books can fucking do one.
And the game itself can fucking do one as well, to be fair.
I don't mind it, other than the fact that it's rolling for days.
It's just, yeah, that's the thing. It's just so fucking slow. Yeah, and do you know what's weird, actually? I was watching Mountain Miniatures are obviously running an absolute fuck ton of coverage of Old World. I know we mentioned it last week and probably the week before as well. Mountain Miniatures, if you're at all interested in the new GW game, Mountain Miniatures is a place to go. They're running videos all the time. Yeah, we're not going to go to a GW store, Crispin. That'll not be happening, ever.
The only reason we would go to a GW store is to piss on it because it was on fire.
Yeah. Well, actually, to set it on fire, we probably wouldn't piss on it if it was on fire.
No, because that's arson and you've just incriminated yourself.
I don't care. So what's this? Oh, hello, Toros. Good to see you, sir. So Toros says, what does Darren say? Do the witches? Oh, okay. This is Darren mentioned somebody's doing a witch hunter game, fantasy witch hunter game. Let me go to my YouTube chat, then I can scroll back. So where did Darren say? The guy that did Fantastic Battles is doing a historical witch hunter game. So what's this, like medieval Europe, sort of like real historical stuff? I bet that's pretty grim. And then Toros has said he's only started writing it, but he said there won't be any fantasy in it at the moment. So it is going to be totally historical. That sounds interesting, actually. That sounds very interesting.
That sounds right up your street, doesn't it?
Well, it makes you wonder how...
Hang on, I've got a
shot. 17th century. I mean, obviously, it's very early days with the development there, but if he's not... I mean, to say there is no fantasy in it at all, does that mean that witches actually aren't witches? They're just misunderstood mad old women? Because obviously that... Or is it there's no fantasy... Except for obviously the witches are in league with the devil and do cast spells.
I don't think you had to be old to be accused of a witch. You just had to...
I'm speaking figuratively, because ultimately if it's like... I mean, again, if it's witch hunter I mean, again, you could do it completely clean. It's like the witch hunters are hunting these women who are witches, and their friends and family and, people are saying, no, they're not fucking witches, we're going to fight you, leave them alone. That could still be good at like a 17th century skirmish game of peasants versus, witch hunters. It might be quite interesting. But then again, you'd sort of think you're missing a trick there, because if the witches actually are witches in league with the devil or whatever and can summon earth spirits and cast magic spells, and that's... Oh, yeah, well, women, men, yeah, whatever, okay. Let's... witches of any gender. I think...
Toasters are included too.
Yeah. It's interesting. It's interesting. And this is the same guy who did Fantasy Battles. Interesting. Whack.
I'm glad you fuckers chose Terrain, because like the other one, I fucking hate it.
Oh dear, I'm sure that is completely accidental, mate. That they chose something that you absolutely detest.
Complete and utter accident, wasn't it? Nobody intended for me to be swearing tonight, did they?
Oh my god. Do you know what? This is the chore of board game minis, when you can't actually tell what is what, because it's so softly moulded.
No, you're just old.
No, it's not.
So, it's 5 minutes to the hour. Does anybody else have any news?
Apart from this, Paul loves building terrain. Oh, there's an excellent podcast about the Newcastle Witches I listened to a while back. Interesting local scene. Okay, we will just have to... Okay.
Oh, Paul.
Yeah.
Paul, did you ever send that stuff to Paul?
No. And I know exactly what you mean. No, I didn't send it to him. I found it the other day.
Paul,
right?
jump in our Instagram DMs after, sir.
Well, I've got to do it first, haven't I?
Yeah, but we also need a fucking address. So
yeah, that is true.
Put you under
Paul,
pressure.
Yeah, Paul, can you send me your address on Instagram DM or something, please, mate? Your postal address. Full Spectrum Dominance are doing a 28mm skirmish game.
Yes, I have seen this.
Hello.
As well.
I thought he was trolling us, but no, David says legit. Is it going to be 3D printable as well?
Yes, more than likely.
Based in the same universe, presumably.
I think this might be to counter the DZC one that's coming as well.
What, to sort of grab some
yes,
grab some attention while they can.
Yep.
And so it is 28mm skirmish, so it's low model count, not mass battle. That's fair. I mean, to be honest, in terms of sci-fi, that's already a pretty crowded group, isn't it? I mean, you've got shit like Stargrave, those ones that Uncle Atom likes. What is it? Space Weirdos.
What's it called? The fucking Space Station Zero.
Space Station Zero. Kill Team, which is actually quite a good game, I think. I know it's from the hated Gwulu.
What was I looking for?
But
I remember.
It is actually quite a good game. In my
Lazy
humble
Forger,
opinion.
where are you?
So let's get to our main topic, shall we? So let's assume, we all know, because we're all veterans in the chat here. But for those joining us new on YouTube, let's explain something about miniature war games. So, unlike tabletop board games, miniature war games the biggest difference between a board game, I would say, and a miniatures war game is a miniatures war game. The play space is far less clearly defined. So you don't have a board with a marked out size, a marked out even.
Underworlds is a prime example of having a board with a hex grid on it.
Yeah.
To play the game you want. Dungeon Saga Origins, again, in a similar vein, inch squares across a set of boards that are set up.
Underworlds is a great example, because I tell you what, if you took Underworld's game mechanics, core game mechanics, and translated them to an open table with terrain of a fixed size, it would be a skirmish game. It would be a miniature skirmish game, wouldn't it, mate?
Warcry here is a good example.
Warcry is another fantastic example, yes.
Because you have a board and a definitive play area with the cards set up for your terrain, etc. But it is still a board game because you're playing on the cardboard with a very defined area and layout.
And I'm sure people might argue different, but I say fighters in the comments because it is a board game. Warcry is a board.
Well, again, the release cycle is very board gamey as well.
Yeah. There are so many things about that game that make it a board game rather than I would say, a full-blooded miniatures war game. So, yeah, miniatures war games. The play space is far less clearly defined than board games, and some game systems are more proscriptive than others. So, for example, Malifaux needs to be played really on a 3x3. Everything about Malifaux, the miniature game's mechanics, everything about the way its objectives are structured, everything about the way the miniatures are balanced it relies on you being able to have a 36-inch square play space that you can basically break up into clearly defined zones. Okay, the terrain doesn't necessarily matter as much as the size of the space and where you place your objectives and your sort of like important game interaction pieces. So some games are quite proscriptive. Some games are incredibly free with it. So I think Frostgrave is a pretty good example.
No, Frostgrave is recommended to be played on a 2x2, and this is where my mind was going earlier, but we'll come to that after.
No, but let me go. Let me make my point, and you can be devil's advocate if you wish. I would say that Frostgrave is not very prescriptive in this context. Number one, the player count of Frostgrave can go as high as you want. It can be 2-player, 3-player, 4-player, 5-player. The only problem is the more players you had with full-size warbands, once you have 50 models on the table, be prepared to be playing all fucking day. That's the first issue. But let's set game length aside and just talk about terrain. If you have, and we've played 4-player Frostgrave full warbands, haven't we, mate? Like when we did at David's and at Club, we've played big games of Frostgrave. At my place, we play big games of Frostgrave. If you have got a lot of players, 48 by 48, 4-foot square is fine. The rules still work. The ranges of the weapons still work. Because the placement of the objectives is relatively free form, it doesn't matter because you've got more players, you've got more objectives, you need a bigger space to keep the game working correctly without it being like a massive congested clusterfuck. But by the same token, if you're only playing 2 players, you want to draw it in. If you play with too big a play space, you've just got essentially a non-interactive game. It becomes dull, tedious. The game would still work, but it won't give you any experience. Tighten it down to 24 by 24 for 2 players, and suddenly everything's very interactive and in your face, isn't it, mate?
This is what I was about to say. The game is obviously designed and recommended to be a 2-player game because it recommends a 2x2 or 2x2. I've played 2x2 game with Ricky at club, and we got it completed in an hour.
Yeah.
That's full fat war bands. 2 aside.
2 players though. You want to be playing 10 aside, don't you?
Yeah, but my point being, we have modified it for deployment rules and for playing on a 4x4. And playing on a 4x4 is usually what we play on at club, because 90% of the games that we play at club tend to have 3, if not 4 players.
Yeah.
Which is fine. However, I also feel with the treasure placement rules, you lose some of the interactivity that you naturally get on the smaller 2x2 or 3x3 play space.
That's perfectly fair.
Because
everybody can place their treasures in a zone and stay in the zone and not interact with everybody else.
Yep. And shooting has a 24-inch range, so you can only reach halfway across the table in a 4x4. Again, it does stop player camping and killing, but at the same time, it's less lethal. Do you know what I mean? There's less opportunity to pop out. The other thing with playing Frostgrave on a 4x4 is we need way more small scatter, barrels, crates, etc.
Yeah, that's I mean, obviously that's something that's, with the exception of one game where that I can think of, where it doesn't matter what size table you play on, you need more terrain than you probably think you do, which is Infinity. I think we have.
Infinity is very prescriptive of what size you play on at the point.
Just let me ban this.
I'll tell you another one that comes to mind that's very prescriptive on its sizing. Carnivale. And it's for similar reasons to Frostgrave, to ensure that there's the interaction, etc.
Yeah.
It's not prescriptive on what volumes you should have, whether you should have a lot of like plazas and foyers, etc.
Or more water.
Whether you should include water or boats, but it is prescriptive of, you are playing 75 Ducats and we recommend you play on a 2x2. Here you go.
Yeah. The other thing as well, there aren't really a lot of long range interactions in Carnivale the game, so obviously once you start getting very distant.
You and whose army, mate? Fucking doctors. Range for days, boy.
What's your longest ranged attack? 24?
48 inches.
Oh my god, fuck off out of here with your 48-inch attacks. What the hell, man?
Oh, I'm fairly sure it is. It's the soul cannon.
Oh
it can basically reach all the way across the board if I get up on a building roof.
Bloody broken ass shit. So
you love playing against my doctors, Mr. Captain Mobility.
Yeah. So it's, as David's already said about Frostgrave. See, one of the issues is with your is your terrain collection needs to accommodate the table sizes that you want to use for the games you want to play. Now, we have an advantage with Club in that Club uses the fabric mats without any neoprene backing or anything like that, which means that they are relatively easy to fold down to smaller sizes and they still work. They don't lay perfectly flat, but once you get some terrain on them, you can make it work. If you're somebody who's got like pre-built boards or neoprene back mats, and short of cutting them down, or the other option you've got,
or again having a 6-inch dead zone with no terrain in, and
that's it. You then have to say, okay, well, we need to mark us a zone of no play on this 4x4 to turn it into a 3x3. and it starts to become a pain in the ass to do. So what we've done a lot in the past is that we've sort of like tried to accommodate the terrain we have at club and the collection we've got to make the games play at that size. So we've played pretty much all of our big games will be played on a 4x4, won't they, mate?
Again, when we first played Flames, it recommended a 6x4, and we went, no, we only have a 4x4 map, we're playing on a 4x4.
Yeah. And I've been pretty much, up until this point, I haven't been convinced that
a 6x4 was worth
that
it.
You could not play any game on a smaller space. As the only other thing is you do have to adjust your game size in terms of miniatures. If you try and take fantasy for example, I've played a lot of fantasy games on 4x4, whether that's Kings of War or old school Warhammer Fantasy Battles. If you do not tone your points right the fuck down, you don't have room to move. Essentially, you're just putting rows of troops against each other. You need to take all the terrain off and then just march towards each other. And it's like, doesn't work. So you've got to scale your points limit back to match your play area. But I've sort of been of a mind that it works. And I've not been dissatisfied with the result.
Again,
up until this point.
I was about to say, I've played Star Scrappers.
Yeah. Which
now,
I still
Star
haven't
Scrappers
played,
doesn't really have a prescriptive board size, and it just says, oh, you want like 8 to 10 pieces of scenery of varying sizes, whether they be buildings, ruins, whatever.
Okay.
Me and Ricky took the infinity approach and threw everything in the kitchen sink at a table.
Okay.
We had a rules question. I threw a couple of pictures up into the Discord for Star Scrappers. And in the Discord, I had comments going, fuck me, that's a lot of terrain. Why have you thrown all that terrain at it, etc.? And it's like, genuinely, the gameplay is better for having all this terrain. It makes it more Infinity-esque in its movement. Yes, the game itself is still basic, but having the terrain and the interaction and reducing the line of sight and reducing the maneuver lanes, as you do in Infinity, so that you don't have AROs for days across the table, has made it a more enjoyable game. And several people went, oh, I didn't really think of that. I was just doing as I was told in the rules. So this is kind of an example of...
So what do you say? The rules recommend X pieces per player or something, do they?
No, just 8 to 10 pieces.
Oh, okay. Right, okay.
Anyway.
So they have a suggestion of 8 to 10 pieces of terrain total.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the other reason for scaling down tables is David spoke about it earlier. Table dressing and scatter. The tiny little piles of barrels, the little piece of wall section that actually... The freestanding tree that you're going to ignore for rules purposes, but just makes the table look pretty. The bigger your table, the more of that crap you need. And it's not an insignificant expense or cost in terms of time and money, is it?
No.
So that's, another reason why generally I've sort of like tried to normalise my gaming experience to a 4x4.
But I think our eyes were opened on Saturday.
Very much so.
Now, my dining room table is only 3 foot wide. I couldn't play a 6x4 game of Flames of War. I need to develop something to make it playable for 4 foot wide boards. However, we didn't think going from a 4x4 to a 6x3 would make too much difference. At the end of the day, we threw the same, if slightly fewer pieces of terrain at it as we did the first time. Wouldn't you say?
We basically put your terrain on it, and I brought a couple of green hills and some trees. But I think we used club stuff when we did it on a 4x4. So I don't think that necessarily there was a lot of extra stuff, like you say. It was a different terrain collection because it was mine, not clubs. But I don't think it was hugely different in terms of quantity or type.
No, it was more interspersed on the 6x3 because of the nature of putting the same amount of terrain on a bigger map.
Yeah.
But fuck me, did the game play differently?
Yeah.
We had way more, and again, I think some of the scenario played into this as well.
True.
Having an objective scenario, but we had way more movement shenanigans. Game 1, we saw that there were blitz orders for giving you an extra 4-inch movement, do a test, and then if you pass your test, you get an extra, you get basically your movement. In the first game, we didn't play with any of the movement shenanigans, did we?
Yeah.
Didn't play with any scoot and shoot, didn't play with any blitz, did nothing. We just sat there gunning the shit out of one another.
Yeah, it was a very static game. But again, weapons ranges played into that. You know, Saturday's game was one of the first games where I've played in a long while where I was acutely aware that the weapons, the table size triggers off the weapon ranges to change the nature of the game in terms of what can shoot what can get at what. And again, you do need to, again, we made a super smart decision with that ruined church to turn it into effectively tall area train. So it literally divided that table half in two, and it hid everything on the far side of it from like even indirect fire because it just couldn't be targeted unless it was spotted by something else.
Yeah, because you lost your spotters, didn't you?
Yeah, you nuked my spotter unit quite quickly. So, but it, and the thing that made the core of it was that it transformed the game. I went from not really getting flames, and we had a terrible first game. It was quite, I wouldn't say depressing, but it was a real Debbie Downer of a game, wasn't it?
Well, again, we've used it as an example on stream as to why you should try before you buy.
Yeah.
Look at it this way. If we'd have tried before we bought, because we've mentioned before we have major regrets over it, and we had an experience like we had on Saturday, we'd have bought into it and been happy. Wouldn't you say?
I'll be honest. Having played the game, I don't know as I would have bought it right about now because I don't think it ticks enough. My issue with it is it doesn't tick enough unique boxes for me. It's got a very similar 3-stage dice mechanic to the Games Workshop games with the hit, save, wound. It's World War II in theme. It just doesn't have enough different. It doesn't have enough difference to it. But would I have been happy to say, yeah, this is a game I'll look at in the future, definitely? Then yeah, you're right. Because I can see from the play we had on Saturday, I can see the tactical depth. It's been opened up and revealed to me by the size of the play space. So, yeah. While I'm not as, confident to say that, I definitely would get into flames now, it definitely has changed things.
We've got Darren in the comments saying he prefers a 2x2 game as it's great for solos and many of the small skirmish games. You get into the action much faster.
Do you know what? I mean, there are all sorts of reasons. I think Batman's supposed to be 3x3, Malifaux's 3x3, Frostgrave is 2x2 or 3x3. What other ones have we got? I think Burrows and Badgers is 2x2 or 3x3.
Star Wars is 3x3.
What, X-Wing or the miniature game?
X-Wing.
X-Wing's 3x3, but that's quite a specific. X-Wing's more of a board game, really, but that's for a different day. I mean, fucking hell, Kill Team is what, 2 boards that are what, 24 by 18, something like that. So it's fucking, it's tiny. Smaller is definitely better in a lot of respects, I think. If I'm
Darren coming in here with the golden suggestions again as well.
Verticality.
Increase your verticality.
Yeah. I mean, Necromunda. You can do it to a certain degree with Mordheim, making sure that you've got like high city walls and tall ruined buildings. Frostgrave, yeah. Make sure you've got tall ruined towers or walkways between elevated spots. That sort of thing makes Frostgrave way more fun, especially with, because again, you've got spells like push and levitate and, telekinesis. You can really make use of elevation. A lot of games it benefits from hugely. Not a massive. Elevation is a bit of a pain in the arse in Malifaux, but Malifaux's got a very complex rule set. Elevation's huge in Infinity. Again,
Flames, it's non-existent.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter.
Same as Warhammer Fantasy Battles.
Yeah. I mean, but where a game uses it or can use it well, it's definitely a thing to do. Again, it just means investing in your terrain collection, which is something that we as gamers are often bloody terrible at, spending enough time on our terrain collection. And to be fair, this stream feeds into this. I think if there's anything else that we've learned from this, which is, yes, it is a pain in the arse to have a terrain set that you know will stretch to that full 6x4 with good coverage, plenty of detail pieces. It is a pain.
Particularly in a niche scale like 15.
Well, I mean, to be fair, mate, even if you take the scale out of it and just go for just themes, it's like, have you got like a desert theme, a jungle theme, a whatever theme? To build a terrain set of that size for a table of that size is no mean feat. But do you know what? Some games just need it. Some games absolutely need it. Cheese me, 15mm isn't niche, 13.5mm is niche. So Cheesy's the asset. Oh,
what game are you playing at 13.5? Cheese.
This is you. David won't know because David's not an otter, unlike the rest of us. So, but while we're actually on the subject of public service announcement, go to ontabletop.com. Look at the fantastic website with wargaming news, articles, videos, games, playthroughs. Join that website with a user ID, explore the forums and the fantastic community of people that are a part of that. Then become a backstager and pay your subscription every year because it's the best money you'll ever spend. Public service announcement finished. David isn't an otter, so he doesn't know about the in-joke where basically everybody's because Warlord have released a new set of correct me if I'm wrong, Cheese Me, is it Napoleonics at 13 or is it World War II at 13.5mm? They've done a new model range at 13.5mm, which is a fucking weird scale. And essentially, Jerry is triggered as fuck about it every time somebody mentions it. So that comment was there just to troll Jerry, who won't see this because he hasn't got a YouTube account anymore. Yeah, American Civil War and Napoleonics. Thank you, Cheese Me, for clarifying.
He might see it and watch it. He just won't be here commenting and being gaming Gandalf.
Yeah, somebody will no doubt say to him, yeah, they were poking you with sticks the other day, Jerry, and he'll go, fuck them. That's a very good one. Ewok says there, I have a rule for table builds. As I do terrain by the table, it must be usable for at least 3 games. I mean, game systems, I assume you mean Ewok. But that's a fantastic little house rule to have. I'm definitely going to bear that in mind when I start building collections. I noticed Orinoco said there that you'd got the Acid House stuff. What do you think to the Acid House paper terrain, Orinoco? Just interested. As somebody who backed not the new Cyberpunk one, but the one before, the sort of the futuristic one, the more sort of industrial looking future one. What's this? I see. I think I'll enjoy doing terrain more than the figures. Am I not normal? Fate, no, you spam. When David finally buys his on tabletop membership, you can go and watch. If you look in the project system, in fact, the project system might be public access as just a registered user without actually having to join. But if you go through the project system, there are some guys who just basically just do terrain projects. Come on guys, help me out in the chat. Who's that guy from that Antipodean guy who does he did the insane Port Black Sand project, and he did the Roman Colosseum? It was all the same guy, wasn't it? 3D prints everything. 3D prints his fucking furniture. Hutch, yeah. So there are people. You're not at all a freak for thinking that the terrain may be more fun for you. Spam. Loads of people just lean hard into the terrain. Really, Chris? There are people who don't finish projects. Orinoco, when you do get your Acid House paper terrain, mate, I would be very interested to hear what you think.
Right, boys and girls, can we just come down to my tabletop, please?
Da 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 da. What's happening? Who works at a table like this?
So yeah, we've got it built.
They look pretty damn cool, mate.
Crushed spaceship hull sections.
Were they a real pain in the arse?
Yes, they fucking are, because layer on top of layer, the pegs on the bottom of these go all the way through both layers, and they don't quite line up, etc., even with a dry fit. Then you have to tie these 2 bits together with this bit, and then once this bit's on, you've got to tie it together with this bit and put these singles on the end.
And
on these ones, they ever so slightly overlap, and they're annoying.
Oh, fuck. Are you sure you just haven't put them on in the wrong order or the wrong orientation?
Well, there's no instructions, so we made it up as we went along.
Well, that's on you then. You should have actually dry fitted them like a jigsaw to see where the hull cracks were, and I bet you they all fit perfectly because they'll be all cut from one sheet, won't they?
No, they don't. And I will tell you why they don't. Because on this very faded image, look at it.
Okay, shit. Damn it.
You are wrong, sir.
Okay. So what do you think about, while you've got them on camera and you've got them assembled, so how do we think about getting them ready for the table? Do you think piece of piss? Just painting, or I mean, obviously you're probably going to texture the base with something.
Texture, yeah.
You're going to do that before you prime. Seal your texture in.
No, because I have the world's best texture. It's called mortar, and it looks like sand.
Okay, right. Fair enough.
Yes, they were a bit expensive, but I'm yet to see anything like these. And with
they are a pretty unique design.
For 28mm, they're probably not the best.
Bit too small.
For Hot Wheels scale, on the other hand, they're fucking amazing. Obviously, they're a decent size for Hot Wheels cars and for Gaslands, and this is what these are mainly for. For a little bit of sci-fi scatter and Gaslands.
That's your
Cheese me. It's not that I'm used to having the blueprints. It's that I'm the fucker that designs the shit to make the blueprints. So I know how the fucker goes together because my brain is thinking about it.
Well, now you've just had your first experience of reverse engineering, mate. It's going to make you a more rounded engineer in the end.
Fuck off.
So So that's that job done. You've still got half an hour to kill, son.
I have. I don't know what to do.
Oh yeah, though. Gaslands on Mars. Sci-fi Gaslands on Mars with futuristic.
Yeah, the website's
cars.
down, Ewok. And when I messaged them about it on Instagram, they were like, "Here's some pictures of it. Make it up as you go along."
So,
thanks, guys.
We've decided that they're expensive and the customer service probably isn't the best.
Yeah.
Okay. So not a glowing endorsement, as it goes.
But it'll do.
But the terrain's fine. If a little tricky to put together.
I mean, it's not as fiddly as the fucking raceway tunnel I did. That was a very sweary evening with lots of super glue and activator. At least this has all gone together with PVA and is happy going together with PVA, so we'll gloss over that subject.
Yeah, just small mercies, mate, small mercies.
Take the little wins, one by one.
So, yeah.
Ewok, Mars is not a lie. Mars is not a lie. We'll all end up there eventually when we win our race.
To be fair, a Mars-themed table for the Gaslands would be a very cool project.
Well, no, it wouldn't, because Gaslands is set on post-apocalyptic, post-nuclear warfare Earth, because you're racing to get to Mars.
Okay, it sort of breaks the story. Okay, that's fine.
Unless we're nuking Mars now as well.
Can't we sort of like have everybody get to Mars and decide that this is too good to stop doing?
You're not you when you're hungry, Darren.
Oh, what's that? I prefer Snickers. That is such a lame ass joke, Darren. Well done, mate. Such a lame ass joke.
Gaslands does have a story, cheese me.
Not that anybody notices or cares.
Am I the only one that cares about the lore in games? That's maybe a stream topic.
Yeah. To be honest with you, it would be quite a good one for us because we do have quite different opinions. So, obviously, I've discussed a lot about how my attitude to table size is going to change going forward. You've not been as verbose as me, but that's usual because I just don't stop talking.
You have verbal diarrhea constantly.
Yeah. Do you want to
table size for me?
Tell everybody. So, like, wind back 2 or 3 weeks. Where were you in terms of this? Oh, yeah, let's just chuck it on a 4x4. It'll be fine.
Pretty much was of that opinion. Oh, fuck it, let's throw it on a 4x4. It'll be good.
Okay.
Didn't really see the point in a 6x4 because A, I don't own any 6x4 mats. B, I have a lot of terrain that will cover a 4x4. But I've been bitten by before with games where I need the coverage.
Yes,
for the game and the rules to work properly. And if I stretch to a 6x4,
you break the game just as badly.
Really works.
Yeah. Okay. So,
however,
yeah,
we've had 2 games on a 6x4 in quick succession. Saturday with flames, and the game really came alive.
Yeah.
Counter that with Monday evening at club and bolt action, because bolt action at 1K should be played on a 6x4.
Yes, and to be fair, my rule with bolt action was 650, 700 if you're playing on a smaller table. You needed to reduce the forces because 1,000 points was just too much shit. Particularly if, like me, you brought a ton of regular units.
But even though it was on a 6x4, the game itself was quite static. Do you know what I mean? And I think the scenario played into that because it was surrounded.
Yes.
I think you guys not having your lists on lock played into that as well a bit.
What do you mean by that?
Like, it was Ricky's first outing with the Germans.
Oh, I see what you mean. We didn't have our list sort of like what dialed in our heads, so we knew exactly what we were doing.
Yeah.
Got you. Yeah.
And again, this is possibly a criticism of bolt action more than of the game itself.
Hey, go for it, man.
The table itself. I always find with bolt action, you do one of two things. You run onto the table, get in and get out, get the fuck out of the transport that you've just come in. Looking back at our games that we played US Marines versus Japanese on the table.
Yep.
Get the fuck in to cover, then start dealing with problems, at which point you're basically giving everything fire orders. So you have a really dynamic first two turns.
Yes.
And then it goes to static.
Yep.
Or you have your situation on Monday night where it's quite a static opening. And then it did become more dynamic, but nowhere near to the same extent because stuff was already whittled down. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I do know exactly what you mean. And I would say that's a very good observation, and I hadn't really thought about it, but you were dead right. Even the games we played on Tabletop Simulator, there was at the end of the game there were still American units dug in on behind rocks on the beach.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So I get totally what you mean. Like, it really bolt action, yeah, it is quite a static game. I mean, thinking about the games Ricky and I have played, it's like you say, there's an initial movement when you bring reserves on and they get into a position where they've got half decent cover and some sort of target and job to do, and then you just chuck dice at that job.
Again, even the most dynamic game we've had movement shenanigan-wise of bolt action was when you bought that German list that didn't work. Do you remember when you ran into the church, assaulted my sniper squad that was in there and took them out?
Yeah.
And my Sherman just rolled up the street,
put a
church 3-inch HE into the side of the building, wrecked your squad's life.
Yeah, with like 3d6 hits or whatever the fuck it was.
Yeah. Then it came round the corner, tracked your Panzer. And my PAT team were working their way up the right hand of the board to get the killing blow on.
Yeah, yeah.
The rest of the board, like troops wise, it was exchanging gunfire and just running around that church.
Yeah, and there was a little skirmish. Yeah, there was a little skirmish off in the opposite corner, wasn't there, where I ran some guys up through some trees, cut across that road.
Yeah, up into the windmill, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, yeah, and there was a little scuffle there, but it was much of them nothing really, wasn't it?
Yeah.
No, it's a very good point. Again, I think...
Again, Flames on Saturday for me felt really dynamic because I was trying to limit your line of sight onto me. I was trying to move and cross and get to the objective at a certain point.
Yeah.
So there was, like, again, you played quite a static game with your noble werfers and that fucking 88 that wouldn't die in the fucking farmhouse. How he survived, I have no fucking idea.
It was a bit ridiculous towards the end.
Entire squad of fucking 2 Greyhounds and 2 Jeeps running up, MGing the shit out of him and still can't fucking hit him at point blank range. It's like, how the fuck is he still alive?
Yeah. I mean, to be fair though, the Nobelwerfers was the Nobleworths is a good example of why the table size mattered, because I had to decide with them. I really didn't have a good central position to place them for line of sight because of the way we'd done all the woods. There was going to be arcs of fire that were completely obscured, and I decided in the end, okay, well, just get them covering the objectives because that's the victory condition. If I have artillery that can just keep bombarding the objectives and stopping people sitting on them with impunity, then that's more value than anything else. But the consequence of that decision was they were out of the game for like 75% of the game. There was nothing for them to do.
And again, it's like
but watch the position they were given.
Rolled up to sort of set an ambush, and I just completely off-tracked it because I didn't roll up to the crossroads.
Yeah.
I dived off on the back of the woods to limit your line of fire into me.
And again, that's because I got that intact 3 Panzer group on that north road or on that other road, so I could have come across the crossroads at you. That's what made you dive down, wasn't it? Dive south, if you like.
Yeah. I've got fucking tigers behind me and Stugs to the left of me. Right, let's go off-road, boys. We're going to not get fucking murder hoboed at the crossroads.
Yeah, because again, you had small buildings and that to use as tank cover, didn't you? There was like a little mini cluster there near the objective.
And again, AOS at 4 foot by 4 foot, when we've played it, we end up with dynamic couple of turns, and then it just, particularly when we're playing your Zinch and you're fucking bringing blue horrors and brimstone horrors.
Yeah, it's just
it just descends into a boggy, grindy mess.
Yeah.
When we played 6x4, when you first showed me how to play AOS, when I nicked your orcs versus your Zinch, it was a way more fucking dynamic game because I was running around trying to get the objectives on the.
And we were using my 6x4 table there, weren't we?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Orinoco said about here, look, would it be worth David trying Kings of War again, but on a 6x4 table? Possibly Orinoco. David's issue with the Kings of War is he bounced hard off the morale mechanics, the nerves. And that was sort of like my fault because I didn't. Number one, when I built David's list, he didn't have any inspiring for rerolls, and we were playing with so few units that a couple of bad dice rolls and shit was just gone. And I think David felt like, well, this is a bit fucking random. I think we definitely do need to play Kings of War again. We need to play it. The problem with Kings of War is it doesn't scale all the way down. You have to. It's a game that works. Again, this is not just table size is important. All sorts of parameters of games are important.
Seeing as I'm a Mantic subscriber,
an
ambush is the intro, dip your toe in the water.
Yeah.
There may be an argument that ambush is the better game for 4x4.
That is probably a valid point. Because I know ambush restricts your list building in several ways, doesn't it?
Yeah. Again, a lot of the games, even on Frostgrave, is a similar example, and this is what I was thinking about on the way to work this morning as I was driving in. When we play Frostgrave on a 2x2, it's in, out, it's a bit of a clusterfuck in the middle, and depending on who you're playing against, whether they're like Ricky, who I play quite regularly against, where it's like, oh, fuck it, we're just playing Rule of Cool, we're wanting to build our warband out and level up and learn shit and do stuff as like a campaign, versus playing a more thorny, aggressive player who will just camp and start telekinesis the treasures back towards them and taking pot shots at whoever sort of crosses it in the open.
Yeah, playing it really aggressively sort of thing.
At least on a 4x4, you can play that aggressive thorny guy and just have nothing to fucking do with them. Because you can outmaneuver them, you can outrange them, etc. So there's benefits of not playing on the prescribed table sizes, as well as drawbacks in both regards.
That is true.
For the games that we've listed and used as examples tonight. Again, this could be half of the reason why people have bounced so hard off 10th edition at Club, because obviously we only have access to 4x4 mats other than the one 6x4.
Do you know what? I did think that. I actually, when Jack put up in the club about anybody want to play 40k next week, because this was obviously in the forefront of my mind with it being our topic tonight, I did feel I got a little sick in my mouth when I thought, oh, maybe I've been unfair to Warhammer 40k. Maybe table size is one of the factors that you just can't negotiate on that game. But then again, so here's another aspect to this discussion, right? Here's the finishing. Some game systems will give you advice on how to scale your play area to scale their game, okay? Games Workshop actually have different sizes, or they did in 9th. I don't know about 10th. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, guys.
They don't in 10th, I believe.
So in 10th, because they don't have 6x4, it's bloody, what is it, 48 inches by 72 or some, no.
It's no, because they changed it all, didn't they? Because they released mats specifically for it.
Yeah,
so that
it's
you can't
fucking...
buy the fuckers elsewhere.
In fairness to them, I think they've done it because it's more like a common dining room table size. So it's like shrunk for practicality of home gaming, which is fine. I don't care. But I mean, they used to have, so it was either 2 kill team boards back to back or 4 kill team boards back to back, didn't it? It was like it was this sort of like fixed dimension. So they had, and I played 1,000 point games on the small play area, in fact slightly larger, and I fucking hated it. Because my problem with I don't think we're being unfair to 40k, because I think 40k's bigger issue is you cannot build a list of what you want. You have to build a list.
Again, if you kneecap yourself and cut the fat to play at a certain point size because you're on a certain table, guess what you do? You cut the least effective units.
I suppose you do cut the range of units. Yeah, maybe that's true. Like if you've got maybe with a certain army build.
Seventh, right? When I used to play Tau a lot.
Yeah.
That virtually all of my Tau could shoot across an entire board once I'd castled up about 12 inches into the table.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, yeah, I can't really help that because that's what my prescribed shooting distances are.
Yeah.
And we're playing on a 4x4.
Yeah.
The fact that I can bring a weapon that's got 72-inch range on my Riptide and basically sit in one corner of the table and annihilate everything on every other edge, corner, and in between. I'm sorry, that's how it is.
Yeah, but you can do that on a 6x4 because 72 inches is a ridiculous distance. That's more down to what terrain you build. Weapons that have like a 48-inch or 36-inch range, those weapons change a lot between 4x4 and 6x4, don't they?
Yeah.
Because they go from being able to cover pretty much everything to being a fair bit that they can't cover.
And again, Infinity is a prime example of here, if you're playing at 100, 150 points, 200, 300, here's what our recommendations are for sizing, because it does scale up. Darren, in regards to your comment of Frostgrave, we always play with Wandering Monsters. We always play with the crit wall.
I didn't realise that Wandering Monsters were an optional rule, but yeah, we always play with them, Darren. They're one of the most fun things. I think without them
the
as
other
well.
thing is, Darren, maybe with Ninth and the fact that it was 2 small kill team boards, they wanted to just make it as killy as possible and get stuff over and done with. Get the game over quicker. I mean, again, half of the 40k tables that I see, I'd sit there and go, there's not enough terrain on them.
Yeah.
Again, Warcry, I know we've said already earlier this evening it's a board game, but it's very prescriptive on its sizing, it's very prescriptive on its layout. If you don't include any of the AOS shit, because that shit's broken, you can have some quite fun games because it's mainly melee combat focused. There's a few ranged miniatures in it.
Yeah, they've deliberately kept them to small numbers, haven't they?
But they've kept them to a minimum.
Yeah.
So again, some of this is game design. If how you build your board, how you build your game. I'm trying to think of another game that I've played recently that.
I mean, what I was gonna say as like our parting shot was that, for God's sake, manufacturers, if you are designing a game, every war game should have a section at the front of the book about play area. And I think, although most games touch on it a little bit, it should be touched upon. They should be far more explicit about it. So even things like, what recommended sizes of table would we say suggest for certain games? Sizes, what terrain density? That's, I mean, it's not uncommon to see, oh well, we recommend you play on a 36 by 36, blah blah. But how many say how dense the terrain should be? You know?
Again, Starscrappers saying 8 to 10 pieces.
Yeah, but 8 to 10 pieces, what does that mean?
And the board size.
We've got 8 to 10 pieces. Barrels.
Not overly
hedges.
prescriptive, but it's a start. It's a step in the right direction. Do you know what I mean? Yeah.
I mean, it's better than nothing, but I think
it's better than saying, "Oh, just play on the 2x2."
Yeah.
Okay.
And the flip side is, and another thought takeaway from this is, if you are somebody who has tried a game and doesn't really enjoy it, or hasn't really enjoyed it, think about what environment did you play it on, table sized, amount of terrain, because it can honestly be fucking day and night. If you get that right, that element of the game's sort of like framework right, it can light up a game. If you get it wrong, it'll turn it into a fucking nightmare. Do you know what? I don't know, Orinoco, how explicit or thorough Firefight is. What I do know is that I have played Firefight on 4x4 at 1,000 points and not felt that the game needs anything. I have enjoyed the game.
Let me tell you.
I can tell you it works very well on 1,000 points of Firefight, works very well on a 4x4, the way we've played it, which is basically starter army forces with not too much armor. When you
there is, in the Firefight rulebook,
yep,
on page 18, there are a pair of example of tables with a good mix of density for terrain for challenging and interesting games. They use the general guidelines on page 50 for the amount and type of terrain to use. Utilising that, here's what we have at Mantic HQ. Recommendation for a 48 by 48. Recommendation for a 72 by 48.
So when you say a recommendation, is there like a photograph or a plan?
There's a photo with the details
That's
on,
awesome.
and like
I mean,
some
that's
hills.
exactly what Cheese Me said. Do you know what? That would be something that every game designer could do, because if you're designing a game, presumably you're play testing your game. If you're play testing your game, you're play testing it on something. Photograph that. And I don't mean a close-up shot of a miniature stood in the corner of a building with it in dynamic, movie pose. Photograph the fucking table and perhaps put 2 or 3 paragraphs underneath it about the choices you've made. Don't put all of the large pieces of terrain at the edge. Don't put all of this in the middle. Don't do this. Do this.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Getting ready to play here for Firefight. If you're playing a smaller game, 1,000 to 1,250, play on a 4x4. For games at 1,500 points or larger, consider playing on a 6x4.
Okay, so they got quite a lot of detail in there.
Then choosing,
and then they've got photographs
terrain.
of a 4x4 layout and a 6x4 layout.
Yeah. And placing terrain is on page 50. Battlefields are rarely flat, featureless wastelands. There'll be hills, vegetation, buildings, reading, blah, blah, blah. Unless the mission specifies terrain placement, you should follow the advice below for giving a dramatic and tactically exciting landscape to fight over. When playing on 4x4, place around 8 pieces of terrain and up to 8 smaller linear obstacles. Other items such as scatter. On tables of 6x4, increase it to 12 pieces of terrain plus 12 linear obstacles and scatter.
So again, Mantic have come in with an almost textbook example of how to do it, because it comes like my question
to the size
earlier.
Of your terrain pieces,
sorry, mate.
Aim for roughly, and when it comes to the size of your terrain pieces,
aim
for roughly 4x4 or 6x6 as footprints.
So as in inches.
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, they've drawn a distinction between central terrain pieces and scatter. They've told you the size and number of terrain pieces roughly. That's what you want. That is what you want.
And then players should make sure there are few, if any, clear lanes where line of sight can be drawn across the entire table.
Yeah, again, just a tiny little... Darren makes a good point. Going back to Gaslands, we had to make a guess on a table size for our first games, and I don't think there's any recommendations in the book. You might be right, Darren. You could easily.
I don't know. I don't have the book to hand. It's downstairs.
I have the book here. I won't do man reads book on the internet. And I don't know if there's an index. I'll check quickly, but I don't think there is in this game. No, there is no index.
Rulebook
There's a
states
QRF.
that both can be. The rulebook states 3x3 or 4x4.
What, in Gaslands?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, well, that's fair. Where is that, out of interest?
Don't know. Reddit and Board Game Geek have quoted it.
Well, because I can tell you on page 12, it says the following. Table. You'll need a flat surface to play on. The size isn't too important.
Fair enough.
So maybe when it goes on to building...
But this was 5 years ago, so maybe it wasn't in the refueled book and it was in the original blue book.
Could be in the original book. The only other thing is, when it goes on about building a team, it may recommend table sizes for team sizes. So like if you've got like 100 cans, it wants to be this. If you've got 200 cans, or if you've got like 4 players, it should be this. Because again, I imagine Gaslands is one of those games. More players, you need more space. Otherwise, everybody's...
I mean, again, could you imagine... The only thing I will say, when we've got more... I get your point of more players, more space.
Yeah.
But when you're doing a death race, and again, how we do a death race on a 4x4 is a little different. So we start in one of the corners, typically running a line across towards the other corner with a bit of a diversion in the middle to split the pack so that people have got a choice of directions. Diagonally opposite. Then we head to one of the other corners for like the 3rd/4th gate, and then head back across the initial line to the other edge of the board for the finish, don't we?
Yeah.
And Okay, that's a lot of linear distance. I can't do Pythagoras in my head very quickly because I've been drinking and it's been a long day. But
hey, mate, I'm good at
when you
maths.
look at
I'm
the
not even going
linear
to attempt to do that.
feet based on the movement templates, without the game dragging on and on and on and on and on, that I think we need to find a happy medium. Do you know what I mean? Of length, because
do you know what I was
got
just sitting here thinking, and you've hit upon something there. We haven't got much time left, so I'll be brief. Movement templates. Gaslands, I think, could be a brilliant example of where a table can be too small. Because,
or big.
well, it could, but I think, yes, you're right, it could be too big. But the thing with Gaslands is because of the movement templates, if it's very cramped, cars that have got huge maneuverability and can do hairpins for days, and teams like, is it Miyazaki that do all the fucking spin and
Miyazaki, slide, spin, and
do you know what I mean? Those teams are at an inherent advantage if you've got like a tight track which is impossible to negotiate. You need room on your table.
Were a massive disadvantage.
Yeah, because they want to be slapping down long straights for days. If you're fucking driving in a plate of spaghetti, they're fucked. But I think it's a good example of potentially a game where the table it's like David says, there is a sweet spot for that. I think it's a bit throwaway to say that size does not matter for this game. Table size matters hugely for Gaslands because your movement is all based on curves. If it's too tight, you can't maneuver without spinning and sliding, and some teams are inherently going to be better at that than others. And if it's too big, it's going to take you all day to play the fucking game, isn't it?
Yeah, Paul learnt that the hard way, Darren.
Yeah. So yeah, that was quite an interesting discussion. We hope you guys enjoyed it. That's you guys in the chat and you guys on the internet watching us later on the YouTubes.
Like I say, I think we've meandered around it, and there are cases where it really matters, and it completely changes the playability of a game. Flames, Gaslands, Warhammer 40k, to list a few.
Yeah.
And there are games where it really doesn't matter.
But I think on balance, David, it matters more often than it does not matter. I think you're right. There are definitely games where it's like, it really doesn't matter that much. But I think on balance, it probably matters more often than we think it doesn't, and it matters more than we think it does.
Yeah.
That's
I think
the
it's
other
something
thing.
we've both been guilty of overlooking.
Yeah.
Up until recently.
But yeah. Right, guys, let's call it a night. Thank you very much for watching if you watched us. Thank you very much to you guys in the chat, the real stars of Yellow Belly Tabletop. If you can find time to do only one thing tonight, then please click the like button down below. If you want to, and I would absolutely love you to, give us your thoughts on table size in a couple of sentences in the comments below. Either give us a example of where you had a bad experience, an example where you had a really positive experience, a rule of thumb that it might be game system specific. Have you developed your own little little system of calculations in your brain where you're going to be like, yeah, we can get away with this, we can get away with that, we need to make these changes for this, that, and the other. Particularly the big games, AOS, 40k. These are games that David and I really do find a slog. So if you can give us specific advice about them games, maybe we could fall in love with them again. I know I'd love to fall in love with 40k, but I just find it so hard.
Again, I'd like to play some more AOS, but it's just a boggy grind fest, and you have S tier armies and D tier armies.
Yeah, to be fair, the army tier thing is the issues around army building, we've covered it before. We won't go into that now. Anyway, we thank you all, and we will hope to see you next week. And between now and then, try and get some hobby done. Get some models painted, because you never know. Oh, and if you want to enter the painting competition, there is an email address down below for those of you who are on the Tabletop Discord. And if you're not on the Tabletop Discord, why? What are you doing with your life? Sort yourself out. You can always direct message me there. And we will see you next week.
Next
Tatty
week.
bye.